And good evening, y'all, and welcome to
Hello.
Tuesday night. With my special co-host, Nirvana, the best in the business. Welcome. So, how was your day?
That's good. Pretty slow.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got Why Are We Always Yelling in the chat? Matt is here. Craig's Catfish, I just saw pop into the chat. So people are starting to show up.
Nice. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
excited to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, so I picked this topic because I mean, I don't know how many of you know, but I work for Aquarium Co-op in customer service, and part of my job is helping people find the correct medications for their sick fish. And it's one of the reasons that I am a big believer in the med trio and quarantining with the med trio that Aquarium Co-op talks about, because those three medications are safe to be used together. They're safe to use with invertebrates. And when you use those medications, when you first bring in your fish, it kind of like knocks out any initial disease. And anything that develops later on, you can choose a specific medication to deal with. But
Mhm.
it's an anti-parasite, so you're taking care of internal parasites. It'll cover ick and fungus and fin rot and all sorts of other things. I can actually
Yeah,
share a link
yeah.
here
Do that.
to the information page. My internet's a little slow, bear with me.
Yeah, the weather here in Texas is kind of questionable, y'all.
Yeah, it's been a little wild lately. Um,
Gone to a half moon. Spinowski.
yeah, Craig's Catfish. There's a lot of medications that are not going to be available in every country. I'm pretty sure the US is also on its way to banning the commercial sale of antibiotics, like all forms of antibiotics. But as of right now, we're pretty lucky in terms of what we have access to meds. We're all a little slow tonight.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Why Are We Always Yelling managed to get the link faster than my internet could load it, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
For those that,
they're finally loaded.
nice. Hey, for those that wondered, Way is a great mod. If you do live stream on YouTube, get him as your moderator. He does good job.
Yeah. Yeah, we're really grateful for the mods. Yeah,
Hey,
okay,
come
so Craig's
on!
Catfish. The reason that so many of these countries have started to ban and severely restrict the use of antibiotics is because there's antibiotic resistant strains of bacterial infections that are developing, and that's really scary because antibiotics are something that are really slow to develop, and finding something that works on a strain of bacteria, the bacteria usually evolves faster than the medicine does. So, in order to protect us, essentially, because that's the fear when
Mm-hmm.
you start making antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria, those bacteria can then jump to another species. And since we have such close contact with our fish, our hands are in our tanks all the time. I mean, you have one little scratch or cut on your hand, you get a bacterial infection that is antibiotic resistant. That could mean a really bad time, or even, it's
Right.
not good. So there's a good reason that so many countries have banned it. It is frustrating for us as keepers of these animals to watch the animals suffer because we don't have access.
Right.
And
Hey,
really, I think
Nora!
in the future, yeah, it's good to see everybody popping in the
Holly!
chat.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. So I think in the future, we really need more fish vets.
Mm-hmm.
And there just are not a lot of them out there. The most recent talk that I saw from Aquarium Co-op on their members only live streams um, was done by Dr. Tim Miller Morgan. and he is an aquatic fish vet. If you have not seen that already, honestly, it's worth the $5 to just pay for 1 month of the Aquarium Co-op subscription, and just go watch that one video is well worth the
Yeah.
$5. You learn a lot, and it kind of hit hard what I'm already talking about, and so you'll get a little taste of that level of expertise. I can't even come close to his level of expertise, but I do know quite a lot. I have dealt with a lot of disease in fish. Thankfully, I quarantine.
So how
So
long do you quarantine for?
so that depends. If I know that the fish store that I'm purchasing from quarantines their fish, which is rare, I will say it is
Yeah.
rare, but there are fish stores out there that do. If I know that they have quarantined their fish, I will usually if the fish look healthy, I can either throw them in a tank if they're like the only fish that are going in that tank, or I quarantine them for around 2 weeks. But if I know for a fact that they're imported or they haven't been quarantined, I will quarantine for 4 to 6 weeks. And I actually recommend doing at least 5 weeks, because some illnesses will develop later on. Parasites are actually one that you really won't see signs of until a month or two in, wherein your fish start having wasting disease, they get skinny, their color dulls, or like another indication of a parasitic infection is actually like heavy breathing and
Mm-hmm.
bottom sitting. So a lot of people don't know that. They think, oh, my fish has a dropsy or a bacterial infection because they're bloated, they're sitting on the bottom, and they're breathing really heavily. But, really the problem could be that they've got internal parasites and, possibly a secondary infection from the internal parasites.
Mm-hmm. Hey, June! Shark fan! Welcome all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But does anybody have any questions in the chat yet? Any
Every vet
questions
I've
we
been
can
to
address?
Australia about fish has left chocolate in my face. I'm sorry, Craig. That should never happen. So
That's really odd. Okay, so I have some advice for you. Reach out to your local universities, especially the ones that have veterinary programs and marine biology programs or aquatic biology programs. Those are going to be more likely to have a fish veterinary program. I know that a lot of the major universities in the US have them. That is usually where I get the best response from a fish vet. And they can usually point you in the right direction for a vet that can prescribe you the antibiotics that you need. You may have to go out of your way to get it, but it is possible. So reach out to universities. They're more likely to be willing to help you.
So in an emergency, what would a person do?
So
Like if
Coral
go ahead.
Coralworks has a question or a
Okay.
comment about vet. Last time I talked to a fish veterinarian, they said internal parasites are only really a risk for wild collected fish. Nope, that is not true. That is super not true. Parasites can be, if you use any sort of natural materials in your tank, natural driftwood, plants, any sort of leaf litter, all of that has the potential for introducing parasites.
Yeah.
And imported fish are still extremely common, and they are commonly housed with like bred fish, like,
Yeah.
in-house bred fish all the time. So the fact that like an actual fish vet told you that makes me really, oh yeah, live worms too, Matt. It's rare with live worms. I would say that, you're most likely going to see that with like earthworms if you're feeding large cichlids earthworms. But I have not seen it in like some of the microworms. Black worms are very safe. And to my knowledge, like white worms and grindle worms are as well. So really it's only a problem with like the larger worms, earthworms, grubs, that sort of thing.
Kelly!
Yeah, so I would really question that fish vet's expertise, CoralWorks, because, and I really, if you haven't seen the co-op live stream about this, I really encourage you to go watch it, because I'm betting Tim Miller Morgan would strictly disagree with that.
Wow. Yeah.
After seeing a bloodworm frozen come back to life, I don't doubt anything. Oh my God. Yeah. Freezing is something that is supposed to kill parasites. I think that dehydration is the only real way to, like, ensure that, so like freeze drying, essentially. That is really the only way, because it actually physically breaks open the cells. So because you're flash freezing it and then dehydrating it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the best way to ensure that you're not getting parasites with your food. Actually, look what I have right here.
Let's see
So
it.
these are I'm going to
On.
product plug here, but these are the Aquarium Co-op freeze-dried brine shrimp cubes. These are a great option for if you don't want to do live brine shrimp. They just as much nutritional value, and they're in these nice convenient cubes that you can just like break into pieces and feed to several tanks. I usually just toss the whole cube in there and let them go nuts. It usually takes them like 20 minutes to finish the whole thing. I have tons of guppies, so they're big eaters. But yeah, freeze-dried foods are a great option. Repashy foods are a great option because they're in high nutritional content, low risk.
Okay. There's a lot of. Go ahead.
Yep. So most of I don't understand why any vet would tell you that parasites are over medicated for, because I mean, every fish that is not reasonable to breed, like not profitable to breed, those are always going to be wild collected. Autosynclists are one that they just don't breed very well in captivity. And when they do breed in captivity, caring for the fry and raising them is really difficult. So those are going to always be wild caught, because they can catch hundreds of them, sell them for pennies, overseas, sell them for pennies, and then they're imported here. And then we sell them retail for like $2 to $4 a piece. So when a fish is at that price point, you can almost guarantee that those are the ones that are going to be wild caught. Pea puffers are another that don't breed very well in captivity. There have been more aquacultured pea puffers lately, and I think that's going to start improving. So maybe you will have aquacultured pea puffers. Clown loaches, yep. Clown loaches are another one that, honestly, okay, clown loaches just do not ship well. Loaches in general, they just don't ship well. And I don't know if it's because they're a scaleless fish or what, but every time, because I used to work in a fish store, every time we got a shipment of loaches, I mean, there was like a 50-50 chance that the whole bag was going to be dead on arrival. And we had fish shipped in like day of. So it's not like we were doing several days in shipping. It was, they were coming to us from the importer like same day that they were ordered. And we went to the airport, picked them up, unloaded them immediately. And loaches are always one that just does not ship well at all. So they're skinny, they're covered in ick, which is hard because they're scaleless, because you can't treat them like a normal fish, like a scaled fish for ick.
So how would you treat them?
So normally with scaleless fish, I do use the ICX, because that's honestly, in my opinion, the ICX is the most effective treatment for ick. It's also effective for Epistolis. So ick and Epistolis can be mixed up often. They look very similar, not the same disease. They're treated very, very differently. So if you've ever had a strain of like highly resistant ick that looks like really, really bad ick, you might want to look into Epistolis, because that's most likely what it is. And what I would do is I would just treat them with like a half dose of ICX. So dilute it by a lot, and then probably treat them for a few days longer than, so you would wait on a scaled fish for 3 days after the spots have, disappeared from their body. Whereas with scaleless fish, I would usually wait 5 days until they're done showing spots, just to make sure that it's not going to come back.
Right. Hmm. So, do you assume that all fish have parasites and medicate them?
So it depends on where they come from, honestly. If I'm getting them from a local breeder and I know that they treat for parasites when they bring fish in, or, they monitor their fish and make sure they're disease free, that's a little bit different story. But generally, all fish that are kept in a retail store are going to be cross contaminated with fish that have been wild caught. There's
Yeah.
no way to avoid that. In a retail store, fish are getting sold and brought in at such a rapid pace. And if they're not quarantining, there's going to be parasites in the substrate. It's just,
Yeah.
that's inevitable. So, and it's especially bad with live bears. Live
Right.
bears are extremely common because they pick at the substrate. Any fish that is actively eating from the substrate is more prone to parasites.
Right. Yeah. Actually, my local Petco just recently removed all the substrates from the aquariums.
Yep. Yeah, honestly, I that actually makes a lot of sense because if they're doing water changes and actually like vacuuming
Mm-hmm.
the substrate, like
Right.
sitting there and like vacuuming gravel, it's a huge pain. I had to do
Yeah.
it so many times in that fish store, and every time I was just like, God, there's got to be a better way. But bare bottom tanks would be a good way to go, and that would eliminate a lot of risk from parasites because the what happens is the parasite they drop their young
Right.
their larvae into the substrate, and that's when they're consumed by the fish, and then they develop into adults in their digestive tract.
Uh, but heating up the water, will that help remove the parasites or no?
Yeah, there are some parasites that are extremely temperature resistant, but the only real way to eliminate risk is to either culture your own foods, where you can, ensure a parasite free environment. Even then, there is still some element of
Yeah.
risk if you get, the culture from somebody who isn't careful about parasites.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but freeze dried foods are really your best option.
Hey, Skull Aquatics! Hey, bro, how you doing? Long time. Hey, bro, I actually need to call you up. We can just hang out and talk. It's been a while.
Yeah, so that is the thing about medication. You are going to probably lose some fish. Medicating fish is inherently hard on them, especially with doing three medications at one time. Um, but the problem is if you let that disease continue on and you add that to your main aquarium, when you then add fish later on, they're going to be stressed out. Fish that are stressed out being transferred to a new environment, their immune system takes a hit. Um, there is a study done, Tim Miller Morgan mentions this in his video, where they took a fish out of water for 10 seconds, literally 10 seconds. That was
Mm-hmm.
it. There was 30 days worth of impact on that fish's immune system. So if you think about the amount of stress that a fish goes through being, if they're imported, being imported on a plane, potentially not being fed for up to 2 weeks while they travel, being in bags with high ammonia levels, low oxygen levels, then going to a retail store, changing environments, and then going into a bag and going to your home aquarium, which is a totally different environment.
Mm-hmm.
That amount of stress can do a lot of damage to a fish's immune system. So at the very least, I would advise quarantining and observing for at least 6 weeks just to make sure that their immune system has time to heal, so that if there is any disease in your aquarium, like pre-existing,
Mm-hmm.
when they go in, they're more likely to be able to fight it off on their
Yeah.
own. Actually, really horrible situation that happened, to somebody posted on Facebook, I believe in the Aquarium Co-op group. Um, they lost their entire tank, I think it was like a 75-gallon aquarium full of mature rainbow fish. from
Ooh.
2 rainbow fish that they adopted from somebody else. They got a resistant strain of Epistolis, and the second they added those new fish, dynamics changed, the fish got stressed, everybody got sick, everybody died.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important to quarantine. Like, at the very least, please put them in a separate tank, observe them for
Yeah.
a few weeks at least to make sure, get them fed, get them healthy, keep the water really clean, make sure they have the best chance to have their immune system recover before they go in with your healthy fish.
Fish time with Lando. Welcome.
Yep, only Oscars. The only rule I don't break is quarantine. That is true. I even recommend, you mentioned using artificial substrate. Okay, so no. Artificial meaning, so like plastic gravel. There is just as much risk of parasitic, it's like parasites living in that substrate as there is with a natural one. Where the higher risk comes from is like wood, leaves, cones. I do a lot of blackwater tanks, so I inherently
awesome.
have more risk for parasites in my tank. Thankfully, my fish are healthy. I don't seem to have issues. If I do see issues coming up, I actually do have a deworming food that I feed every once in a while to get parasites, clean them out of parasites. If I see a fish that's getting really bad, I will pull them and treat them separately. I've got some subscriptions coming in. Thank you guys.
Yeah, big boy, welcome. So if the parasites in the substrate, the best way to fix that is to totally empty the tank out and start over?
So parasites in the substrate can actually be vacuumed. But ultimately, what you're going to have to do is break their life cycle. And this happens with ick too. So when you prevent the fish from, or prevent the worms from developing into an adult inside the fish, they're unable to then reproduce. So with deworming, you have to do like a week of treatment and a week off, and then a week of treatment and a week off. And I think you do that 3 different times. That will break the life cycle of the parasite and most likely eliminate most of the larvae and eggs that are existing in the substrate. You need to be vacuuming your substrate. Some parasites use scuds to get into bass. I'm swimming on top of water. I know scuds can carry parasites, but I'm not sure if, I'm not sure what you mean by making them go to the top of the water.
Hey, Robert, welcome.
Medicated food from Beantown. I think I got mine from Angels Plus. I can't remember. It does work. They don't like it.
Oh, okay.
They don't like the taste of it though. I usually have to mix in some Rapashi to get them to eat it.
Yeah, Carol finish the sentence, and then the birds eat the bass.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So they use the bass as a vehicle to get to the birds.
Right.
That makes a little more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So can birds give parasites to fish?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's actually something you have to worry about with outdoor ponds.
And how do you prevent it from happening?
You can't. Nature will be nature. Just make sure your water's clean and your fish are healthy, and they can fight it off on their own usually. Outdoor fish, they're going to be exposed to a lot more parasites. You can't really control that.
Right.
In a pond, though, you have a lot more water volume. You've got natural sunlight, so that those UV rays are killing bacteria and stuff.
Right.
How long should you observe before medicating? That's a really good question. I usually advise 2 to 3 weeks. If you don't see anything coming up, if you don't see any fish that look even a little bit off, you're usually okay. I really encourage people to quarantine for 6 weeks. I know that's a long time to wait to add fish, but I don't want to scare people with this horror story, but
go ahead. I hear it.
I have a shame tank, and My shame tank is a tank that is contaminated with mycobacterium, and I haven't done anything with it yet. It's just completely overgrown, because it's going to be kind of dangerous for me to then strip it. I have to throw everything away. I have to sterilize the tank in order to use it again. Mycobacterium, for those of you who don't know, contributes to the cause of tuberculosis, and it is a zoonotic bacteria, so it can be passed to humans, and it can cause tuberculosis in humans. So it's very dangerous, and all of that happened because I adopted a fish, did not quarantine. He was the only fish that was going in that tank. So I thought, hey, he's going to be the only one in there. It doesn't matter. It was a betta. It was imported. And yeah, that tank is now completely empty. There is nothing alive in there other than plants. Mycobacteria is the scourge of rainbow fish. Yes. And that is why quarantine, please. Because if you have a fish that has a mycobacterium infection, it shows in other ways. It is not just the wasting. It is not just, the slow decline. A lot of it is you see tattered fins. They're more susceptible to bacterial and fungal infections. There will be more going on. The fish will appear not well. And I noticed within the first 3 weeks that he was not well. And I treated that fish, and he ended up passing away anyway. And there was nothing I could do. So, and now I have to tear down an entire tank because of one fish.
Right.
So, I don't want to scare you, because mycobacterium it's not super common, thankfully. But if you're buying imported fish, especially imported fish, that are raised outside, like bettas are, they're much more likely to have a mycobacterium infection. So just be aware of that. And like, that's worst case scenario, but that definitely cured me of just plopping and dropping. So yeah. Okay, so Cora works, is medicating right away better to have all the stress be at once? Okay, so yes and no. Some people like to wait to medicate. The reason that most of the time, like I don't know specifically why Aquarium Co-op recommends medicating them immediately, but my guess is that most people don't want to wait. And most of these medications need a couple of weeks to work.
Mm-hmm.
So when you medicate at the very beginning, that it just shortens the time that the fish have to be in the quarantine tank. So 10 subscriptions already. Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Woo!
the support. Yeah.
Hey, Zoltan,
Sorry, there's
welcome.
nothing on my YouTube channel.
But it's coming, y'all.
Yes. Yeah, it'll come. Hey, Kelly, it's good to see you. I saw you pop in a chat. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I was blabbing. Yeah. I was not feeling good last week. But yeah, we will have to try again. Any advice for keeping fancy guppies? Honestly, the best advice I have is water changes.
Right.
Guppies, they reproduce a lot. They produce a lot of waste. So pearlweed is another one of my favorite things to do with guppies. Pearlweed grows really fast. It's a great nutrient exporter. It's cheap. It's plentiful. You can get it just about anywhere. And it's one of those stem plants that actually carpets really nicely. So if you have a tank that you want to just like have a simple carpet of, or if you want like a big forest, it's really great for hiding babies. Only Oscar says, don't add fish to a populated tank. It's a forever tank or a quarantine tank. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, fancy guppies are honestly, they're pretty easy in my experience. I haven't had too much trouble with them. And make sure you add new blood every once in a while.
Yeah.
So if you're breeding consistently, I like to add at least a few new females a couple times a year, usually.
Texas Holy Rock. Does anyone know where that Silent Aquatics can get a hold of some?
Everywhere.
I know.
I see it in just about every fish store I walk into. I mean, so the place I used to work, Exotic Aquatics, they always have some. So if you need some and you're in the Plano area, that's where I recommend getting it. I think it's pretty cheap too. So go to Texas, yeah.
Yep, exactly. That'd be the best way. Because
don't mix guppy strains. You know what? Okay, if you're trying to breed fancy guppies for a specific type, true. Don't mix strains. However, if you're trying to make something totally new, or you're experimenting with long fin types, you can mix strains. Guppy color genetics are. Oh, hey Jimmy, it's nice
Jimmy!
to see you.
I was like, you see you here. Good to see you. Long time.
Yeah. Hey Garcia, thank you. Just subscribed. Yeah, so damn it. Lost my train of thought. Guppies.
Yeah.
You can mix strains if you're trying to do something specific, but you have to really familiarize yourself with guppy genetics. And honestly, it's a whole mess. It is a lot. I can't remember any of it. I have to have a diagram. I honestly don't know where my diagram is at the moment. There's a couple books about guppy genetics. Let me see if I can find the book I'm thinking about.
Hey, Passing Wind, welcome.
Yep, right here. Okay, so it's literally called Genetics for Guppies by George Chin. It is an excellent book about the guppy genetics and where each strain came from down the line. So if you're interested, that's a good one to pick up. It's like $45 on Amazon. So if you're interested in doing fancy guppies, read all about the genetics and you can kind of play a little bit and make some cool new stuff.
So do you ever add fish to a populated tank?
Yep. Yeah, I saw that comment already, and it's very true.
Sorry, I'm so far behind, y'all. Nirvana's awesome.
Only Oscar says, so no impulse buying. Yes. People who impulse buy fish that don't have a quarantine tank going all the time, you're just setting yourself up for a dangerous game, man. Like I that's exactly what happened with that betta that contaminated that cube tank. Because I mean, truth be told, I was at Aquashella.
Right. Ooh, ouch! I'm sorry.
Yeah, and both of the fish that I got at Aquashella that year ended up passing away of preventable disease.
Oh.
So, yeah. So imported fish are, it's kind of a toss up. Silver Creek, and you live in Texas, yeah.
Yeah. I wish.
I think you said the Texas Holy Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine it's probably hard to get up north because there's no limestone up there.
Right.
Because all Texas Holy Rock is just limestone with holes in it.
Yeah, I know.
So
there you go.
If you go to like a rock quarry, they may have some limestone in the yard that has kind of that Texas Holy Rock look.
Right.
So that might be a good place to check. If you've got like a big landscaping facility that has big piles of rock, just go ask them. Usually those people are pretty nice.
Oh, you could come down, visit me on a taco tour.
Yeah.
And then take some home with you.
Come get a truckload of it.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Do that, Silent Quiet. I want to see you. Hey, Nick. All right. Yeah. Melvin, welcome.
Ooh, you're really behind.
Uh-oh. I mean, only a week behind.
Let's
Hey,
see.
Roto, welcome. No, I want to make sure everybody's questions are answered, and everybody's welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So,
Hey, passing winds. Can we not be sexist in the chat, please? Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, mods, you might want to watch the chat a little more too. Thank you.
I got it, but
Thank you.
jokes about purchasing your wife are not okay.
Nope. Silver Creek, Tommy, welcome.
Kelly, I think you're right in the north, like in the Midwest side of the north. I'm from the Northwest, and we have no limestone. It's like all clay up there.
There you go. A nice southern trip.
Yeah. That's a long drive. I have a friend that just moved from Texas to Washington. She drove the entire way. I thought she was nuts.
So, after 6 weeks, does that mean that all parasites are gone?
Not necessarily, but 6 weeks is about the time frame where most disease will kind of show up. So with parasites specifically, like you'll see the bloating or the heavy breathing if they're like really impacted by it. There's always going to be some infections that are able to slip by you. But if the real purpose of being 6 weeks in quarantine is not actually to eliminate disease. It's to allow those fish to be in kind of a sterile environment while their immune system recovers. So the important part is that they have time to build up their defenses again, so that, when you finally put them in the main tank, they can fight off any potential disease that would be in there.
Hey, Mike, Nicholas Austin.
Hey, it's nice to see you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, Kelly, you're in the Midwest. So Coralville, KH and GH were 22 plus. That is nuts. The ravine that's out here by the trail next to my apartment, that like waterway, the KH I think is 18 because of all the limestone. But that's the highest I've ever seen.
Hey, that's a good point, June. The longer the better.
Let them settle it and then rethink your decisions.
Yeah. That's actually not a bad idea.
I don't think I've ever really regretted a fish purchase. Even the ones that like ended in terrible disease.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really regretted any of them. Like I'm pretty intentional about the animals that I bring home. The API test only goes up to 22. Oh, so you maxed it out, Kelly. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, it's probably higher than that. I wonder what the maximum KH is. Hang on. Let's do this.
Hey, Daniel. Welcome.
Maximum alkalinity. Sorry, guys, I'm derailing the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, she is.
Because I had it.
Go ahead.
I'm not getting a good answer. I was curious to see how much carbonate hardness can actually be dissolved in water in one time, without it starting to crystallize. but I'm not I'm not getting a good answer. That's a really specific question. It probably depends on temperature and, you know, what other ions are in the water, whether there's CO2 in the water, all that stuff makes a difference. So, yeah. So, the Med Trio is actually what I recommend to people. It's very beginner friendly, and that's the main reason I recommend it, because I think everybody can figure out how to use the Med Trio and be pretty successful with it.
Hey, Larry.
I do sometimes, with more sensitive fish, tend to observe them first, but I'm also not a person who's afraid to keep fish in quarantine for months. It doesn't bother me.
Does aquarium salt actually work?
Yes, it does.
Okay. What about doing like a salt bath?
Okay, so salt baths are a little bit different because it's a lot of stress on the fish, and when you stress out the fish, you're just damaging the immune system further. So it's one thing if you've got like an egg-bound fish or something that you need like magnesium salt for, like Epsom salts, because that would be an instance where you might like do a bath in order to do like a quick rescue to relax their muscles and then like express eggs for egg binding, or like, you know, essentially magnesium acts as a muscle relaxer. So fish that are constipated, fish that are bloated, that can help kind of relax their muscles and get things moving. It can also help with like guppies that are really struggling to give birth. So those are the situations where I would use a bath. Hey, Ancient Dash, finally.
Hey. Yeah, finally. You missed out on a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, but I would not recommend doing a dip unless you're dealing with something like flukes. And even then, I would prefer a medication over salt dip for flukes, because the more you stress that fish by, you know, dipping them and putting them back, the more you damage their internal immune system, and you're actually making your job harder. So if you're going to do salt, do a low percentage of salt. The Aquarium Co-op has an instructional on like, you know, first stage treatment, second stage treatment, third stage treatment, to kind of give you like a gradual buildup in their aquarium. And there are some fish that you don't want to use salt with. They're super sensitive to it. So I think Corydoras is one, I believe, that is sensitive to salt.
Okay.
Ancient Dash. Chat making poop jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's osmosis and the muscle relaxant. So the process for magnesium for acting as a muscle relaxer, it is used as a laxative. That's the thing. When you look at like a lot of the commercial laxatives, it's magnesium. So, yep, never regretted the fish, just my decision to impulse buy. Yeah.
And hey, about that, the impulse buy, you can always put that fish in a bucket with the air stone or a sponge filter.
I have gone to Walmart and picked up a Sterilite tub to fill with water in my bathtub with a sponge filter. I keep cycled sponge filters in some of my tanks just to like be able to pull them out, throw them into a quarantine tank immediately. It's a good practice, you know, even if you don't have a sponge filter, you can throw like a little bag of media in your hang on the back filter or something like that, and just keep that going, and then throw it in the quarantine tank when you're ready to have a new fish in quarantine.
Right.
So those little tubs from Walmart, $5 to $10, and you can have a quarantine tank set up.
Right. Hey, Missa, welcome.
Okay.
Going down to the chat.
Yeah, Cory cats and plecos are is debunked by Aquarium Co-op. They can handle it more than peeps think. Okay, yeah. So the only thing with like scaleless fish being sensitive to salt is I just wouldn't do a lot of salt at once with them. And there are some people that would say they are sensitive to salt. So there's conflicting information about it, and I would say just proceed with caution. The best place to meet hobbyists. Epsom salt dips can be used for swim bladder. Okay. Yes and no. If the swim bladder issue is being caused by constipation, then the Epsom salt bath would fix it. If it's being caused by a bacterial infection, making the internal organs swell, or a growth issue, like we see in goldfish all the time, where their internal organs are actually too large for their bodies, or maybe you've got a tumor. There are a lot of things that can cause swim bladder issues because the swim bladder itself is basically just a sac. And whenever that sac gets pushed on, it's affected. So a fish's buoyancy being affected by one organ, the constipation thing, yes, Epsom salts would work. But a bacterial infection that causes swelling in other organs, not so much.
Red Laser, welcome.
Corridors are far from scaleless fish. They're categorized as scaleless fish, though. I do know that the softer water species are going to be more sensitive to salt in general, just because it raises the pH and the total hardness of the water. So any fish that are not super happy in a higher pH, rams are one of them that I can think of. They're pretty sensitive to salt as well. So I definitely, if you're going to use salt for a soft water fish, I would recommend adding some sort of acidity to the water to kind of balance that out. I tend to use a lot of botanicals, and that usually works pretty well.
Are discus sensitive to medications or to salt?
I haven't personally kept discus, so I can only speak from the experiences of people that I have had interactions with. Discus are a lot less sensitive now than they used to be because a lot of them are captive bred. When you have wild caught discus, they're going to be more likely to be sensitive to a higher pH, but a lot of the captive bred discus are being bred in tap water. So they're not nearly as sensitive as they used to be. So I would say that they're sensitive to phosphate and nitrate more so than they are pH these days.
Right. And for those that wonder, the tank behind me, the discus are tank raised in tap water.
Yep.
So
yeah, there's a lot of people in Texas that are actually raising discus in Texas tap water, and the pH of the tap water here runs from 7.4 to 8.2. So
yeah, it's very hard.
yeah.
But
yeah, it depends on where you are, for sure. And it
Mhm.
also depends on whether or not can crushed coral be used to raise pH? Yes. KH and pH have a fixed relationship that is only affected by the level of acidity of the water. So when you add carbonate hardness from because essentially all coral, sodium chloride does not raise pH. Okay. It can though. If you have a fish that's currently in water that is 6.0, it's going to raise the pH. So, and that's just because it's mineral content. Salt is used as a buffer. So, let's see. There was a question about crushed coral. Oh, crushed coral is made out of calcium carbonate. So yeah, once that calcium carbonate is dissolved into water, it will raise your KH and therefore your pH.
And will it keep raising it, or will it eventually be neutralized?
It depends on the acidity of your water and how much flow is going over the crushed coral. Because if you have like bag of crushed coral in your filter, the erosion is going to dissolve more into the water column. If you have more acidity to your water, you've got a bunch of tannins, whatever, that's going to dissolve it faster. But if you just have it like sitting in your substrate, it's probably going to sit right around 7.0 because it's only going to dissolve when the water reaches an acidic point.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the recommended like dosage to raise KH and pH is 1 pound per 10 gallons of water. I used to use crushed coral when I was in Washington. The water there comes out of the tap at it's like 20 total TDS. It's basically RO water.
Wow, that is.
Yeah, and I used it to my advantage. And like the first fish that I successfully bred was German blue rams.
Nice.
Um,
And a shout out, thanks, John Halfmoon. John Oliver, fancy guppies. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Yeah. See, I'm pretty sure I used about 1 pound per 10 gallons, but I used it in my filters. I put it in big bags and stuffed it in my filters. I didn't keep any large tanks back then. Actually, the largest tank I've ever kept is 40 gallons, I think. Oh no, I had a 125, but that was very short lived. Saline aquatics, best way to keep crushed coral to raise pH is to put it in bags behind rocks, last longer, and best part when it's exhausted, take bag out and just put new in it. Yeah, so I did not have any hardscape to hide it behind. It was all plants.
Yeah. So what you could do, put that as your hardscape.
Yeah. I mean, I did add it to the substrate, but back then I was more focused on the fish than I was the actual aquascape part of it. So I had some driftwood in there, but I didn't do a whole lot of rocks. I had a hard time paying for rocks when I first started.
Right.
And I didn't know what was safe and what wasn't back then.
That question for you. In a quarantine tank, what do you have to have in the tank, and what should you have in the aquarium?
So I keep my quarantine tanks pretty bare. Usually filter. I keep a lot of my plants in little glass containers filled with aqua soil or gravel. And then I can take that whole plant, put it in the quarantine tank. I usually use a light just so I can see the fish better. But I have like a cheap, I don't remember what brand it is. It's some cheap light I got off Amazon for like $30. It works, right? And then I just have a sponge filter that kind of goes from, tank to tank when I'm cycling it. And after I'm done with quarantine, I will usually take the sponge that I used in the quarantine tank and let it completely dry out in the sun or bleach it just to sterilize it. And then I recycle it after that. I don't know what he's referring to.
No. What meds are available, easy to get a hold of, from like a Petco or PetSmart?
Oh, I haven't been into a Petco or a PetSmart in a very long time.
Uh-oh.
We can look at what they have on their website. What country?
In America.
Oh, that's a nice compliment. Thank you.
Hey,
and like, guys, I just want to make sure everybody knows I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. I've only been doing this for, I think, like a total of like 8 years now. I just am really obsessed with researching. So I have a lot of information stuffed up here.
And one fix. Hey, Craig, this is not a great guest. This is my best co-host around. This is no longer a guest anymore. But
I have upgraded.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like there's not much in terms of medication for fish at Petco. Looks like Melafix,
Mm-hmm.
Microglyph Artemis, more Melafix, Goldfish Protect. There is Orbax, but that's for dogs and cats. Imaginarium Bacterial Infection Remedy. Don't know what that is. They do have Fritz Copper Safe.
Yeah.
That's used more in saltwater than in freshwater. I honestly do not recommend treating with copper because it's not invert safe. So if you've got snails and shrimp, don't put copper in your tank.
Unless you want to remove your snails and shrimp.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that copper sticks around for a long time. So if you ever want to have shrimp and snails in that tank, you really can't use the same substrate, wood, or decor because it's going to leach copper into the tank.
Yeah. But in the
So
aquarium, is there a way to remove the copper from the aquarium though?
I think there is. Hang on.
Yeah, yes.
This is
By the
something
way.
so there's a product for it, Coopersorb from Chem. It is a powerful absorbent of copper and heavy metals. So it will also remove lead and I believe, so copper, including chelated copper, remains effective until it turns deep blue, black in color. Yeah, so Coopersorb is the best way to remove it if you're trying to get it out of your tank. But if you've got natural materials in there, you're going to have to keep using the Coopersorb to keep it out of your water column.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, if those that
Quantum
wanted.
has just brought out a new med. It's copper based. Yeah, this is a Tuesday night thing now.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, Jenna P! Welcome.
Yeah, but as far as meds available from like PetSmart and Petco, it looks like they're moving towards like carrying only the API.
Yeah.
They do carry Fritz, Maris, and Oxy. That's a saltwater medication. I have no idea what it's used for. I would assume it's a bacterial treatment, but it's optimized for saltwater use. But they're really pushing the Imaginarium medications. There's a parasite remedy and a bacterial remedy, and it's their brand. Let me see what's even in these.
So if the copper absorbs into the silicone.
Yes, it can. Yeah,
So
that's
that
why I don't
yeah.
advise using it.
So
It leaches into
yeah.
everything.
So in other words, that aquarium is no longer any good, right?
Yeah.
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 What
Okay,
about
so
using? Go ahead.
the Imaginarium parasite remedy is citrus oil, taget's oil, and neem oil, which probably not going to do a lot. I mean, natural remedies are great, but they only really work if your fish are already like their immune system is healthy enough to kick it on their own. Um, it's not going to be as effective as like a regular medication. And honestly, I think that like natural remedies, I think fish are going to build up a resistance faster to something like that than they would to an actual medication. Because that's the thing with natural remedies too. People tend to overuse them, you know? So even the
Hey,
yeah,
Jess,
the
Colorado, welcome.
oh hey Jesse, it's nice to see you. Yeah, so the parasite remedy and the bacterial infection thing are the same medication. it's it's just oils, extracts.
Hey, I forgot Lauren's in. Welcome.
Hey, are there any
Everybody's
more
here.
questions?
Yeah. Any questions? Put them in the chat, and Nirvana will
Anyone
answer
use
them.
garlic?
Yeah,
Garlic
I
is an
do.
interesting one.
In my food, it's good.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And honestly, that out of all the natural remedies that you can use to decrease the instances you find of parasites, garlic is a great one. Garlic actually is, a lot of people think it's toxic to cat and dogs. It's not. The study that was used to, advertise that garlic was toxic to cats and dogs, they fed cats and dogs like huge entire like bundles of cloves of garlic, and of course they're going to get sick after eating that much garlic. So garlic is not toxic to cats, dogs, or fish. You can use it as much as you want. It's great for maintenance. And actually, fish like the taste of it. If you mix it into their food, it actually makes it more palatable. How long have I been in the hobby? So that's a bit of a loaded question because I had bettas in bowls for a really long, an embarrassingly long time when I was a kid. Had like an obsession with going and looking in tide pools. But then I didn't really start doing research and getting into breeding and planted tanks and like really getting knowledgeable until I was an adult with adult money, essentially. When I was living with my parents, I had farm animals. So my basic background is actually in farm animal care. But animal husbandry has been a part of my life for a very long time. I've been actively keeping aquariums on and off for like 7 to 8 years now.
Nice. Talking about medications and so forth, what do you do if you have aquaponics?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Sorry, I have a string in my sweatshirt. It's driving me nuts.
Hey, careful how hard you pull it. You might disappear.
It's the sensory issues.
Yeah.
So with aquaponics, if you're growing food, you really shouldn't medicate. If you have to medicate, pull the fish out and medicate them in a separate container.
But then,
because I'm pretty sure that you can't even so in the fine print, CChem has officially released that because they have never tested it, you're not actually supposed to use prime or safe to dechlorinate water for like food crops.
right.
So if you're doing aquaponics, if it's ornamental plants, do whatever you want. If it's food plants, don't use anything that is not approved for human consumption.
Which is kind of sad because there's only so many out there, and some of them are hard to get a hold of.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I believe that there are some antibiotics that are approved for use on animals that are going to be safe, but you still have to wait a certain period of time. And plants tend to store stuff in their cells. So just to be safe, medicate outside your system.
Mm-hmm. And how long would you wait to add a fish back to the system?
After medicating?
Yeah.
I mean, most medication is out of their system. As long as you pull it out of the water with like carbon and stuff, most medication is going to be out of their system in like 48 to 72 hours. So probably a few days and then throw them back in.
Okay.
Ooh, what's your opinion on garlic guard versus raw garlic? I don't know if I have an opinion on that. Garlic guard is convenient. That's the main reason people use it. Peeling and crushing garlic cloves is less convenient. So just whatever you have time for, essentially. Okay. That's an interesting question. Usually with dry goods, like medication products, a year from your purchase date, probably going to start to degrade from there. But with garlic, since it's a natural product, all it's going to do is make it a little less effective. And probably a little less smelly, which might make it less palatable. So, vampire issues.
What? But hey, Eduardo, the vampire would not enjoy the garlic flavor. I don't think.
but yeah, most of the products that I use, medication wise, I will throw them out after a year, just because they're less effective after that. But if they're sealed and you've kept them in a cool, dry place, they should last a pretty long time. You've had a bottle of garlic guard for 5+ years and it stinks. Yeah, it would stink. Throw that away.
Yeah.
Gross.
So yeah, if your medications or food is not stinking, yeah, it's time to get rid of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. If you open a can of flake food and it smells rank, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, just the other day, I opened one up that came in on some rescues a while back, and it was bad, so I tossed it. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I picked up actually when I bought that, or when I brought home that 125, underneath the cabinet it had a whole bunch of like food and supplies. The entire basket of food smelled so bad. And I ended up scrapping the stand because it stunk so bad I couldn't have it in my house. Red eye lyre tail vampire sword tails. I've never heard of them. Wait, are those the super red sword tails, the albino type? All these live bearers have so many weird names now. Like Bettas too. When will the crazy name stop? Red eye lyre tail sword tail. Yeah, okay. So those are the ones that I'm thinking of. I actually kept those for a while. The males are actually infertile, or they're functionally infertile because of the long fin. They kind of like lose the dexterity of their gonopodium, so they can't actually breed with the females. So if you're breeding lyre tail fish, it's actually advisable to get some males with short fins because the females can have long fins and it doesn't affect their reproductive
right.
system. But the males, they don't instinctually know how to use that long gonopodium. So yes, crown tail. I know it sounds weird. But yeah, that's why some people have trouble breeding those, is because they don't know that they're essentially functionally infertile. And there are some people who have tried artificial insemination with them. I would not personally recommend that. It's a lot of stress on the fish. Really not worth it. Yeah, okay. So if you live in a humid environment, I highly recommend getting some desiccant packs for your food. It has saved my food from going bad a number of times. It's not even that humid here in North Texas, but it's humid enough.
Yeah,
So on the third generation, and all of them have the ribbon fins, like they have the long gonopodium. I'm curious to know because I struggled to breed them. I ended up having to get short fin males. How many tanks do you have? Okay, so I'm in a bit of a transition phase right now because I am planning on setting up a fish rack. So I've been slowly kind of breaking some stuff down. I have 8 going right now.
hey Stephen P.
2 males and 4 females. Yeah, it is a struggle. I am really surprised that you have been able to get them to breed. That's definitely a challenge. Honestly, maybe they're figuring it out. Maybe the males are figuring out how to use that thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah, the
uh,
freezer, most modern freezers actually have dehumidifiers built into them. So freezing dry food is a great way to preserve it for longer.
what about freezing medication?
Some medication does not do well below a certain temperature. So read the fine print on the bottle. It'll tell you what the temperature recommendation is. So be really careful with meds. Some of it you can refrigerate. I know
Yeah.
dewormer, it's good to put that in the refrigerator, especially if you're using something like Safeguard. which I don't think is even available now because it's a livestock medication. It's a livestock dewormer.
Jenna P, there's your competition.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Crown Tail, it is a contest. It's a contest because people make it one.
Exactly. Maybe by the end of 2023, the best mod it wins, huh? I don't know. That medication, are there any side effects to the fish?
I mean, stress.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the worst one. Fish, I'm sure that they have side effects just like we do, but they can't tell us what they are. The only side effect that like is observable is some medications decrease the oxygen content in the water, so you want to add an air stone to increase the oxygenation. But other than that, I mean, none that we can observe. We can't speak fish.
Right. So, after medication, use aquachar or carbon or what to move on?
Any sort of activated carbon will work.
Okay.
I just do a bunch of water changes personally because I don't like keeping carbon around. The longer you keep carbon stored, the less effective it is. Because even if you have it in a bag, that bag is going to be somewhat permeable, and carbon just absorbs whatever is around it. So I don't usually keep it for extended periods of time. Sometimes I'll end up with it because it comes with a filter or something, and then I'll use it, but I try not to buy it. It's, in my opinion, it's kind of a waste of money because I can just do water changes.
And if you use carbon, how long does it take for it to remove the medications?
You know, it kind of depends on how much medication you've used. And that's kind of why I like doing water changes, because when you do a certain number of water changes, you know that all of that water that's in there now is fresh. Yeah. It's all new water. So you've removed all the medication. It doesn't matter anymore. Okay, so I don't think there's any evidence plants store medications in their cells. There is not that I know of, but a lot of these companies that make the medications for liability reasons, they don't want you using them with food plants. We don't know everything about biology. It's a type of risk that I'm not really willing to take with myself personally. I'm also chronically ill, so I'm extra careful with that kind of stuff. But that's something that you kind of have to like judge for yourself whether you want to risk or not. And there's also, you know, the potential for the medication to just be on the surface of the plant because it's been sitting in a tray of water with the meds. But there were a couple of questions up above in the chat that you might want to chime in on. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Hey, Linda, welcome.
What's your favorite species of fish? From Craig's Catfish. What's your favorite species, Eddie?
Hey, since you only know me so long, can you guess what it is?
I would guess Frontosa.
Yeah. Yep. I was
that's your logo.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Frontosas are beautiful fish. They're very elegant. Yeah. I really enjoy watching them. They're kind of like hard water discus a little bit in the way that they move.
Yeah, exactly. And that is why I'm getting into the dark side, the discus side as well. Because it's kind of the same thing, really. It's just another species.
Yeah, they're very graceful. They just kind of have like this slow, even movement to them, and they're just majestic. And
Now,
also, I'm a sucker for bluefish. I love bluefish.
right. Now, of course, those orange ones in there are not contoses.
Yes, those are clown loaches.
Yeah.
And they are also lovely.
Yeah, and that's why I got them. But no.
I do not have a favorite species. You can't make me pick one.
Okay, pick two favorite species.
I know you meant me, Craig. That's why I didn't answer the question, because I don't have an answer.
Huh.
I like all kinds of fish. I have a really hard time choosing a favorite.
Okay, as of now, what's your most favorite tank setup right now?
My favorite tank setup is my bookshelf tank. I wish I could like take you guys over there and show you, but you're on my webcam. I added some deeper tannins to it, and it's really deep black water now. I could like run and take a picture and like put it on the screen, I guess. But
No, it's okay. But
yeah, I really love that bookshelf tank.
What's the inhabitants? Yeah.
It has just some ember tetras and some neons in there, and then lemon grab, who is my unfortunately super aggressive male longfin lemon bristle nose. Okay, so yes, it is best to swab and look under a microscope, but how many people do you know that own microscopes? They're a several $100 piece of equipment.
I do. I knew who does.
Yeah, I know, and a lot of hobbyists do. I'm actually looking for one right now. I've been kind of looking at on the used market, because that's going to be part of my fish rack. Is I'm going to set up a microscope station so I can better diagnose disease.
Right.
There's a book that I have on my wish list that I'm gonna. It's like $140 book, man. that disease book that I want. It's $140 because it's a textbook for college. And yeah, it's essentially how to diagnose disease in fish. So I'm gonna study up on that. But not everybody has access to a microscope. Not everybody has the vision to know what they're looking at.
Right.
People with impaired vision have a really hard time with microscopes. They are not designed for people with impaired vision. So using a microscope, if you use corrective lenses, is not the easiest task. And one with a digital display is going to be quite a bit more expensive. So just keep that in mind. If you are visually impaired, you may not be able to use a standard microscope like you want to. Your glasses are going to get in the way. Even contacts can kind of mess with your vision, because it actually messes with your spatial vision. And especially if you have astigmatism, that's going to affect you.
Jenna P.
My most expensive book was the entire Shakespeare collection. Yeah. I have an affinity for expensive books. It's a problem. I have a lot of them. I actually have one. This one I reference a lot. This is my favorite book right now. And it's literally an encyclopedia of aquatic plants, and it's got lots of pictures in it and identification. Oh, here's one of my sticky notes.
Bookmarks.
Yeah, so if you do want to get this book, it's Aquarium Plants by Crystal Castleman. Crystal Castleman is German, so make sure you get the English version of this book if you go to order it, because there's two. There's a German version and there's an English one. So make sure you get the English one so that you can actually read it. And it's not cheap. I think I paid $150 for this book.
Wow.
Yeah. I bought a new copy. You can get used copies much cheaper, but I like things new and shiny.
And where would you pick this book up from? Amazon? Or?
So I actually got it from Abe Books, which if you're a fan of educational books, textbooks, okay, why are we always yelling found it on Amazon? I think there's only used copies available on Amazon, so just be aware of that. But Abe Books is really cool because It's basically a database of a bunch of used bookstores. So if you're into like educational materials, historical materials, stuff that you wouldn't find like on shelves in a bookstore or on Amazon, they will usually have it. So really specific stuff like hobby stuff, like plants, fish, that sort of thing. Go to A Books and see if they have something. They have a lot of textbooks from college classes as well. That's basically where I got all my college textbooks from.
Okay. I think, hey, y'all, it's over an hour, way over an hour. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, we gotta let Serena go to bed. That way she work tomorrow. Before we head out, though, Nirvana, what do you guys say to the fish fam?
Stay curious. I know I said that last time, but it's kind of my mantra, you know? Always keep growing, always keep learning. You can never know enough about this stuff. Being curious about the world is how you keep your drive and keep going. So,
Yeah, yeah. Thanks,
what
Nirvana.
about you?
Oh, hey, first thing first. Take care of yourself. Love your family, your friends, and then
Yeah.
enjoy your hobby.
Yes.
And stay tuned for the next couple of weeks, every Tuesday night at
Yeah,
8
we're going to be
o'clock
doing this every
p.m.
week. Yep.
And hey, if you all have any suggestions that you want us to talk about, email either me or Nirvana, and
Yeah, and you
talk
can
about
hit
it.
me up on Instagram too. I'm on Instagram all the time. So if you DM me on Instagram, I will probably see it in a pretty timely manner. So if you've got suggestions, let us know.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone. And those watching replay, I think I forgot to tell you at the beginning. Thanks for coming by and watching. Enjoy. Until next time. Peace out.